everybody. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays. I'm your girl, Coach Christal. And if you are just joining us, this is a weekly platform where I get to talk to, interview, have candid conversations with people I love, admire, and actually want to know more about. If you're just joining us, I want to welcome you to the Steps and Stages family and to the community with our mantra that just says a lot of things happen before this, and I guarantee a lot of things are going to happen after this, but I promise to be here with you now. Please be here with me now. Tonight, I get to talk to someone that I would like to say we are connected in spirit. We are two I'm gonna say little girls from a small town who have now traveled the world and been able to use our gifts and be used by God to transform things in our path, including our families. We are mothers, authors, educators, all the things. And I just admire this woman so much because I think from a distance, what I've seen is her display and live with grace, under pressure, under fire, in and out of things. And I just want you to help me welcome to the Steps and Stages platform, Danita Ogandaga. Danita, please join the Steps and Stages family. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, Christal, that was so beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful to see you. I mean, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our platform, how you would like to talk about yourself, and then we'll dive in to what we're talking about tonight, which is grace.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. Anytime that I'm able to come and share, it gives me great pleasure, but I'm even more blessed to be in your presence tonight. I am Danita Ogandaga. My former name was Danita Solomon, small town girl from Kinston, North Carolina, that fell in love with a guy from Libreville, Gabon, and Paris, France. We now travel the world with our business, monetizing and helping people to grow in strategy on the internet to help them monetize their gifts. I'm an author. I have 9 books. I encourage my child to also write. She's writing. And by day, I'm a power delivery consultant. And I'm excited to talk with you. More than anything, I'm a mother under grace, just like the rest of us. So let's talk more about that.
Trying to do the best we can with the
Absolutely.
Given. Yes. Okay, so let's start. So we have the same place of origin, which I think is important because I think we come from a small town. For those of you who don't know, we hail from Kinston, North Carolina. We are Kinston strong, K-Town strong. Yes. And when we were coming of age, the place we grew up in was called an all-American city.
Yes.
Then that all-American city has become on the top 10 most dangerous places to live in the United States, right? And we have seen it undergo so many changes and transformations that it resembles where we came from, but it does not resonate with where we are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a lot. You go ahead.
No. I want to hear. You go.
No, I'm glad that you say that because, that's our last feeling. My last feeling for Kinston is pride. It is a place that, I developed, a place where I was reared. And, to hear everything that I hear and to see the things that I see, I even go back to my childhood home and it's unrecognizable. But yet and still, it's much like what we are dealing with in life right now. Many of us are going through transitions and we're going through transformations and we are uncertain. We don't necessarily have a place to ground, a place of familiarity. And it's often hard to kind of find your place and find where you belong. So, just like Kinston, I'm sure that it is a phoenix that will be rising from the ashes and that there are people that are transplanted there, people that we know that are continuing to do the work to resurrect it back to its former glory or even better.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Their better is coming. Right. And
Absolutely.
So, right. I think there are people who are there who are doing the work. Right?
Absolutely.
And actually leading by example.
Yes.
And when we think about grace, you just mentioned something like seeing your childhood home and not recognizing it. Right.
Yes.
And the thing that you also mentioned is that when people are in the process of transformation, home becomes the reflection in the mirror. And if they don't recognize what they see, that could also be a little bit scary. Right?
Absolutely. I know for me, my transformation started and I'll use this example. I'm a behavioral therapist by training, social worker. So it took all of that rearing in Kinston to leave to go to school. I didn't want to leave my parents. As you know, I was a baby's daddy's girl to the core. I did not want to leave my parents. But I went to UNCG, where you went. We went to both Spartans.
Right.
And, they passed away. So once they did, my anchoring, became sort of mush. And I didn't know what I was going to do with life and wasn't sure of where I belonged. So now when you hear Brene Brown or, others talk about, grounding or, belonging, I truly suffered that. Even though I was a social worker trained to teach that to others, I suffered myself because I did not have a sense of place. Because after all, my home in Kinston was in the FEMA flood zone. So no one would ever live in it again after we moved away. And to go there now, there's some pockets of humanity, but for the most part, the area is itself undeveloped in some areas. So, yeah, it's just a lot of that, just realizing that the transformation that I have gone through was really resulted in the grief that I experienced when I lost my parents.
Right. And so, again, that's something we both share. So, same place of origin, same undergraduate education. We are both late stage orphans. I also want to say, right, and maybe only some people who are watching from Kinston might get this, okay,
Yeah.
but there's sections, right?
Yes.
Even small towns, there's sections. When you cross the railroad tracks, that says something, and when you go up the hill and down the hill, that says something. And
Yes.
as we grew, Danita, what I realized is that
Yes.
it meant absolutely nothing.
Absolutely.
Right? These invisible boundaries that we give ourselves
Yes.
are the things that either keep us stuck or allow us to see beyond where we really are coming from, our true capacity, right? Like
Yes.
they were invisible.
You spoke about the invisible boundaries.
Mhm.
I have to make that relevant to my daughter.
Yeah.
She's 13
Yes.
and she's on her way to high school. And we talk a lot about, life, and we talk a lot about living. And, we talk about, place.
Yeah.
And I remember, just having a conversation with her one night, and she was talking about, oh, I'm not supposed to do this, or someone said I can't do that. And I was just like, you know what? It is trendy right now to see this performative grace.
Yes.
Everybody's trying to do something to give themselves something, but no one is doing anything. We're just simply wording and speaking.
Oh my goodness.
And I just remember just talking to her about, just sort of, being like a caterpillar and insulating herself in truth.
Yeah.
And her realizing that as she gets older, she's going to have to be even more grounded. I'm even more grounded now than I was when I was little in the small townness of Kinston.
Yes.
Even though I don't go there a lot, I'm grounded in the love that my family had for me.
Right.
I'm insulated in the purpose that God has for my life. So those things ground me and insulate me in a world that's filled with so many trends.
I mean, I think you're right on point, Danita. And we confuse because the language is losing its actual meaning. We're confusing
Absolutely.
insulation with isolation,
Absolutely.
right? And
Absolutely.
how many times, in my professional career as a professor, have I had to look an emerging human being in the face and
Yes.
say, "You're weaponizing language, and
Yes.
what you're doing is hurting yourself."
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we tend to do that. We tend to do that because, for one, it may be some situation, the Bible talks about in this world we'll have, tribulations and trials, but we also have traumas and triggers, and those things are very real. And I remember, I was diagnosed with PTSD when my parents passed away. And, you talk about weaponizing. I would constantly say, oh, I just want to be by myself. I don't want to be with anybody. I'm an introvert. And I just held on to those things, and those things became vows that I married. And I remember as I went through life, even to this day, you have to unmarry a lot of those things and undo those things that you told yourself and made yourself believe.
I mean, yes, yes, and yes. I mean, the language we right, and I just think that even. the interweaving of the
Yes,
spells and the curses that we weave around ourselves, right?
it's a lot.
I'm an introvert. I'm this because, and you would know this, or you're a trained psychologist, social worker. Sometimes it's even, I think it's even debilitating to give someone language for what they understand is not in alignment with them, because
Absolutely.
we're going to lean more on the diagnosis than we are
Yes.
on the desire to change.
Yes. For instance, my daughter was diagnosed, a couple of years ago with dyscalculia. It was like math dyslexia.
Uh-huh.
And I remember there being a time when, we went and got her the best tutor, and, she started doing really well and going from a D to a C.
Mhm.
And I remember, she came and, I was watching her do her homework one day, and she was just like, "Oh, mommy, I don't have to really try this because after all, I have dyscalculia. So a C is really where I'm at." And I said, "The devil is a liar," real quick. And so are you. I said, "Because you are swallowing this pill, but I'm not going to let this define you." And tell me why now she is a B student in math.
Yeah.
All because I had to teach her to unmarry the things that she says,
Yeah.
and to rid herself of this diagnosis. Let's understand what it means. Let's break it down. But this is not your identity. It's just something that you are dealing with in your makeup. But we're going to get you, what you need to get, the resources and tools that you need to be able to equip you. But you got to do the action. You got to do the work.
Right. You have to do the work. Okay, so let's go back to the metaphor you were using before with the caterpillar. If we are insulating, we are keeping ourselves clothed in the next understanding, the bigger awareness.
Absolutely.
If we're isolating, each thing that comes in, we're holding on to it because it's scarce. Right now we're thinking in scarcity mindset. We're just going to hold on to anything that comes in because we don't know if anything else is going to come in. We don't know if the
you are flowing. You are flowing, sister. Like we're diving in the pool together. We are in there because that is exactly what it is. And I love what you just said, because it's fear and faith.
Yes.
It's fear and faith. And we take the approach a lot of times based on our spiritual beliefs, based on our family makeups, based on our, things that have been told to us. Someone told me, "Oh, you're a prophet. Your dad was a prophet, so you're a prophet too." I'm a prophet, but I still got to make sure that I know how to read. I still got to make sure that I go to school and I'm able to make a living for my family. I still have to do things. So we cannot dismiss ourselves from the action that needs to occur with that. And we must dispel fear. We have to understand that fear has a place in our life and it has taken root. And a lot of the things that we're not doing, that we're saying, "Oh, I'm going to give myself grace. I'm going to opt out of this. I'm going to give myself grace." What we're really saying is we're going to give ourselves, an opportunity to wallow and then say, "Okay, you know what? I don't have to do this or do that. I'm just going to, just flow."
Yeah.
But it can't be that.
Yeah. Or we're going to give ourselves the opportunity to be right.
Absolutely.
If I don't try,
absolutely,
and I already was afraid of it, then I can be right and I'm not good at it.
There you go.
And so, this comes up all the time, especially, in my profession, Danita, because people in terms of my coaching practice are like, "Well, I don't know what I want." Well, okay, but let's get to that first. You don't have to come here with a vision, but you have to be willing to create one.
Absolutely.
Students who have come up to me for years, "Professor Brown, I would take a dance class, but I don't know how to dance." I said, "Well, did you know how to do chemistry before you took a chemistry class?"
Yes.
Right? We miss that. It's that threshold of yes.
Yes.
The yes opens the door to get past the fear and lean on something that we can't see, because we were leaning on the invisible boundary.
Absolutely.
Lean into the invisible blessing.
Absolutely. And I have a story for you with that. When my husband and I first got married, I knew that it was going to be a little different, than what I was used to. And I remember, teaching at the university in Pittsburgh and, going about my business, knowing, I'm going to get my PhD. I'm going to finish. I'm going to do this. And here comes this fine dude. Like, my God, he couldn't even speak English at the time. We vibed off of Tupac, but we got together and we became really, really good friends. So fast forward, we got married. I moved to Georgia. I knew that he had a call and a purpose. and it didn't flow like mine. I was college educated. I was, professor. I was in that vein of teaching and all of that. And he had been, the son of an entrepreneur, a very successful entrepreneur and double PhD mother. And I just remember him just saying to me, I'm called to the nations. And I said, wow, that's great. What does that mean? And he began to just tell me all of these things, working with TD Jakes, working with Jerry Savelle, Creflo Dollar, working with all of these prominent ministers, taking their content and putting it in French. And I just remember just going with him on a lot of these trips and just saying, wow, that lane is yours. And he was like, no, you're connected to me. This lane is yours too. And he said, you're looking at this classroom that you're supposed to be in, and it's nothing wrong with the classroom. I do believe that you have a place for it, but God is giving you this whole global classroom that's yours.
Classroom,
And
exactly.
so, like you said, when we do the action, I had told myself, that's my area. That's where I'm going to be. And we look at 17 years later, we've traveled the world, doing conferences, doing workshops, doing tours, working with heads of states, heads of nations, talking to pastors and people that are creating things and inventing things. And our training to hundreds has turned into those thousands, impacting millions.
Right.
So I'm truly grateful for that. And it's just a testament to the fact that we've got to get out of ourselves. We got to move past ourselves. Absolutely.
The plan is always much smaller than your capacity, but once you have the vision, everything opens up.
Absolutely.
Bringing it back to our small town, right? So, when I was in undergrad, my father passed away before I graduated.
Yes.
And, similar to some of the writings you do about grief, I was mad.
Yes.
Because, we come from the same hometown. My father, for those of you who don't know, was a double amputee from Vietnam. He was the biggest sports fan in the world. They wrote newspaper articles. One day, the intercom went out at the track meet, and he was so loud, he just announced all the events. Right?
Yes.
This is the dude we're talking about.
Yes.
So he also suffered from PTSD from 2 tours in Vietnam.
Yes.
So I remember going to my high school graduation and him not attending, just sitting in the house like, I'll see you when you get back.
Yes.
So the fact that he passed away before my college graduation, and me being the person in our household that was going to graduate from college first, I was angry. Right?
I understand.
Angry, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, I was supposed to be the first Black dance teacher to go back to Kinston and build a studio. That was I don't know about the calling on my life, but it's the expectation of our community.
Absolutely. Right? So
we're going to put that out there, right? Fast forward, I had this international touring career. I ended up teaching out of college. I become the first Black woman tenured at the institution.
There you go.
So again, living in a small town, it's the same seed that blossoms in a different way than we could have imagined.
Absolutely. And we, Kinston, is extremely proud of your accomplishments and your obedience, because it takes obedience and it takes courage to be able to do something differently. And Christal, this is what I was talking to my husband about the other day. We were just talking about how, you talk about steps and stages, that's a lot of what you do. And I remember when you first came out with that, and I was just like, oh my God, it is steps and stages. I said, it's exactly what it is. And I just remember, just telling him, my God, no one really remembers the time in our marriage when we first got together. We had gone 2 years without a TV. We had one car. We did not spend any additional money. We took time every day after work to, on a pawn shop computer, develop courses. I watched my husband on a pawn shop computer develop courses. And a lot of times we are afraid of the art of the start. We're afraid to start something. We know we have been sitting and we have been, mulling this thing over in our minds several times, but it doesn't look like the way it's supposed to look. It doesn't look trendy. It doesn't look popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we had that conversation before. I'm not even going to repeat it, but I'll just say it in this
Yeah,
context.
go ahead.
A
Yeah,
lot of, what are you going to say?
go. No, go. Mm-hmm.
No, just a lot of times because it's not flashy,
Yeah.
it may not be the brightest star in the bunch. But when God tells you and he equips you with this courage that you didn't have yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that gives you the ability to come hell or high water, focus yourself like flint. I
Yes.
remember when you started coaching.
Yeah.
I remember, and I don't know the intricate details because I wasn't with you holding your hand, but I was praying for you
Yeah.
as you were building because I know what it was like and is like for us.
Yep.
People would like be like, y'all could go to Tulum, y'all can go, on all these, vacations and stuff, but you're traveling around the world for God. Like, really?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you have no idea. We're doing business, and we have several businesses publishing, digitized licensed content
Yeah.
that we make money every single day from corporations that need curriculum. So you don't sell that. You sell what you are called to do, and the rest will follow.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we want to get really on the shiny stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and we miss it. We
Yeah.
miss it.
And Danita, I just, I love what you're saying so much. And I don't even know if you remember, and I'm going to say it out loud here because I sought your counsel,
I
right?
remember.
I said, who do I see? Who do I know that has not the same gifting, but the same container, right?
Right.
Like this is not about knowing, this is not about positive thinking or encouraging me to do so. I wanted to ask somebody who's from
Wow.
where I'm from,
Yes.
see who I am and give me advice, right? That's different,
Right.
right? That's very different. And what I learned because of my other careers,
Yes.
which many of people don't think are real jobs, right? Like we're saying, like people don't see, right?
I understand.
The glitz and the glamour are only after the work,
There you go.
right?
Only,
I did not become
absolutely.
a professional dancer by just willing it,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
It's ugly in rehearsal.
Yes.
Got to show up every day to do the 8 hours of practice to get to the performance.
Absolutely.
Performance just doesn't happen. And I think that refinement that some people are missing in the
Yes.
middle keeps them in the back door, keeps them backstage all the time, planning, because the
Absolutely.
courage is to perform.
That's it. That part. The way that was good. That was really good, Crystal. The courage to perform.
Yeah.
I believe that many of us are sitting on stacks. We're sitting on stacks of paper. We're sitting on ideas. If my sister is watching, you are one of those people, and I love you. But my sister, I've talked to her several times.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it is scary. It looks scary to do it. But technology has been so good to us.
Yes.
We can even speak.
Okay.
We can speak books. My 13-year-old, she has 4 books already, 2 in English, 2 in French,
Mm-hmm.
but she's speaking her book right now.
Yeah.
When you told me about your son and everything that he's doing, I think it was candles, soaps,
Oh,
candles,
yeah. Gave in his soap business. Gave in
just
his.
one thing. I mean, he's doing so much, so many things, but one concept, that's all it takes.
One.
And you put it to market, you will be surprised how many people will gravitate to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the fact now, tell his story. You took him to Japan. Was it Japan?
Japan
Man,
for his.
I was just like, okay, that's what I'm talking about.
That was the black boy bat mitzvah. That's the black boy joy bat mitzvah.
I love it.
13.
I love it. And I celebrate it, absolutely. But it takes just one act of courage, one step.
Yeah.
We ask God all the time to put his super on our natural, but we don't want to put the natural forth. And it's all just a step. It's just taking what you got and giving it to him.
Okay.
It's coming to the end of yourself.
Okay. And what we love to do is, like you were saying before with our language, right? What we love to do is not just marry, but retell
Yes.
the missteps.
Yes.
And as we
Yes.
retell the missteps, it kills our confidence to take the next step.
Christal, that is also another thing. I wanted to be intentional as I see you are with your son,
Yeah.
with my 13-year-old. We have an 8 and a 5-year-old as well. But with that 13-year-old, letting her be aware of those mistakes and those failures and not seeing the failures as crippling effects,
Mm-hmm.
but seeing them as stages and steps,
Exactly.
as opportunities to be able to improve and to do things better.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, we did not have, my mom and dad were entrepreneurs. They had, a shoe business for my grandfather. They were ministers,
Yeah.
but a lot of like financial, acumen. I
Yes.
didn't necessarily have that
Right.
at my age, at 13, and I remember when they passed at 21, I remember T.D. Jakes saying this, before he looked over his father's grave and he was like, tell me who I am. Tell me who I would be. What do you want me to be? Like, what am I supposed to do? I remember saying that because I felt so incomplete for
Yeah.
so many years. And I was like, my God, I turned off the button of wanting to be a mother. I turned off the button of wanting to be a wife. And
Yes.
I had just dove into my career. And that's when, the orphan spirit was knocking on my door every other day. Anyone that gives attention to you, I gravitated to.
Yes.
And anything that gave its attention to me, I gravitated to.
Right.
And I had to just realize over the course of life that, even with my 13-year-old now, it's an opportunity to do something different. So
Yes.
she's going to be an entrepreneur and financially lit. They had to, make it lit.
Yeah. Right.
Literacy camp
Yes. Uh-huh.
this summer to teach her about, everything she needs to learn that I did not know when I was her age. So taking that step is vital.
Yes.
Vital.
The thing that I hear you saying to Danita is the more honest we are with ourselves and with other people, the more grace we can offer ourselves, which allows us to then share with other people, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
the thing that you're saying about your daughter, right? Like, even in the new devotional that I just published, right? All the
Yes.
people are like, I can't believe you wrote about this. And I was like,
Yes.
it's necessary.
Absolutely.
Right?
You
Because
know,
if you always see the varnished part of me, you'll never
yeah.
see the making of me.
And I love that because social media is really a lot of times about wins.
Yeah.
We control the narrative on social media. We control, what we want. We curate the content that we want people to see about us.
Yeah.
And, there may be some people that may say when you have people, laid up in a hospital bed, why are you sharing that? Why, everybody has their reasons for doing whatever they
Right.
choose to do. But I love what you said about, just the intent. Because a lot of times, I remember when I wrote my first book,
Yeah.
I talked about, being raped. I talked about, doing drugs. I talked about all of those things in that period of time that I did
Right.
when I lost my parents, because I literally was out of my mind
Yeah.
because I did not know who I was.
Yeah.
I was an orphan.
Yeah.
And I remember, when I got the idea to write that first book, I was married. And I remember going to my husband and saying, this is everything. You knew all the bits and pieces. I called you about it all,
Yeah.
but I'm going to tell my sister and my brother so that there won't be any issues
Right.
or things that people can say they didn't know.
Right.
But I love the perspective that you said, just about it being timely. If
Mm-hmm.
we continue to hide our wounds,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to make ourselves available to those people that really need it. And
No.
I'm not saying, come on social media and talk about those unhealed parts. I'm not
Right.
saying that. That's not what I'm saying. Don't because that can put you in a whole triggering trauma of its own. But
Exactly.
what I am saying, as you just said, once you are able to speak definitively about your journey and the things that you went through, you don't need to see what you're going through or have gone through as a failure. Just see it as a step.
Exactly. Exactly. One
Absolutely.
that you took and one that you made it through, right?
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
the other part here that I think gets back to our topic tonight is that it takes the healing to be able to offer yourself grace. Right?
Absolutely.
And so many people, as you just mentioned, do come on social media and they attract people with their pain.
Yes.
And this is like I swear I made a piece about this in like 2001 called "The Publicity of Pain," right? Because
Wow.
after my father died, and I
Yes.
could tell that people only wanted to engage with me so that
Yes.
they could be mourning alongside me,
Yes.
right? Because we know, I mean, and this is old. This is old school theology. Like we know that
Yes.
professional mourners, right? All
Yes.
the right. We know this, right? But I think we forget that, and that people have their own hurt. That when
Yes.
there's no opening for them to heal, they will latch on to your hurt so that they can start trying their own healing process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of times people, like you just said, they run away from their healing by attaching to yours.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that because I remember that. It amazes me, the love and the admiration that people have for our fathers and for, our family. And it just really, it gives me a lot of comfort anytime I put my dad's picture, on social media during the holidays or whatever the case. The amount of people, it's different now. I mean, it's moved and evolved from, the grief to, oh, Mr. Solomon, I'm so happy to see him or whatever the case. But I remember, my sister going through her 9 occurrences of breast cancer. And I
Mm,
just remember, her coming to me and saying very honestly and openly, she said, I'm not sick anymore. And she said, people are not coming around like they used to.
you see?
And it really hurts me. And one thing that I remember just sharing with her was what you said, and that is people don't know how to respond to you when you are well. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to respond to you when you are healed.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that gives us the space is grace. Grace gives us the will to be able to say, I may have been that way, but I don't want to be that way anymore. At
Right.
some point, my sister made a decision that she wanted to live, and she began to do whatever she needed to do to fight through cancer. And
Mm.
God healed her 9 times,
Yes.
and with that, it just really gave a new perspective on life. So when you see her now, she is not wallowing.
No.
In fact, when she goes to the meetings to encourage those women, they want to kind of, share their stories, but it's like a ray that bounces off. She's like, I came to bring y'all joy. I
Yeah.
came to bring the pain. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But it's like, she like, I want to bring you some joy, some sunshine.
Yeah.
But it just really it speaks to that we need to give each other a place to heal.
We do. We do. And we need to respect when people need let me see how I can say this because this is a sticking point with me, Danita, from watching my mother decline,
Yes.
right? And so, watching her decline, watching her pass away, um,
Yes.
and then like being in our hometown and hearing stories that
Yes.
her decline, was evident earlier, right? But no one could really admit to the
Oh, you got that too?
yeah, right. No one can see a superhero become human, right? We don't usually see that transformation, right? And so as the life is leaving this entity that has been superhuman, that has been pouring out, that has been changing and growing and giving, we have our own issues with being able to see that person, that thing, that entity become human in front of us, right?
Hmm.
So that
I'm
was
I'm a little speechless right now because you hit something.
I know, and you showed when you talked about your sister. I thought, oh yeah, that's it, right?
You
Like,
know, hmm, when my parents passed away, Crystal, it was, and, this is about grace. This is about grace. Hey, hometown, Danetta it's from Kinston. She's up here. She lives in Atlanta now, but she's up here. Hey, Renetta. One of the things that I remember talking to Renetta about actually
yeah,
was how I was very angry
mhm,
when I left Kinston.
yeah,
And I said in my mind, I'm not going to go back because I remember, and I had to heal.
Yeah.
because like you said, it was that your dad passed. I saw your mom here and here and here doing this and this for this person. But I'm like, what? But did you not? Why didn't you help her? I mean, I just had to get that whole paradigm out
Yeah.
of my head because it stuck like lint,
Yeah.
and I had to just really remember the times that I had to shape a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, having PTSD. That's one of the things that we did in therapy. I had to shape a narrative because it was such a chunk of this loss that I forgot.
Yeah.
And slowly the memory began to come back in a way that I could feel, heal, and whole again. But just like you, I was angry for a very long time. And I had to pinpoint and place, pluck, and
Yeah. And reset. Yeah,
yes,
yeah, right. Because right, we know this, right? Like memory comes in snippets
yes,
and it comes with an emotional charge. So
yes,
one, I got to be able to isolate my objection to the charge
absolutely.
for what it was, and then I got to find a witness, right?
Yes,
The new definition that I'm using with my clients, Danita, about trauma is that trauma
yes,
is the instance, but the
yes.
feeling stays because you don't find a compassionate witness.
Say that one more time for the
And
people in the back.
I'm pulling this, I'm threading this together from this amazing book called, Be Your Future Self Now.
Yes,
You think about trauma, we're thinking about the instance that happened, and we know that
yes,
the body is keeping score. So it's going
absolutely.
to flow through us when it needs to flow through us, not when we want to do it, not when we're ready to think about it, right?
Yes,
So when it comes up, we
yes,
got to remember that if we didn't have a compassionate witness who could see
yes.
what was happening, explain it to us, help us forgive ourselves, and then give us grace to now feel the new version, that's where the trauma sticks.
And the trauma that exists in siblings and families after the death, years later, everybody had their own account of that situation.
Yes.
And the compassionate witnesses were not around because you're a witness to mine, but
Mhm.
you are not a witness to my brother or my sister or my aunt or my uncle.
Right.
And so they're looking at you like you don't matter.
Right.
Next, and I'm trying to give my account, but listen to my witness, and they're like, no, that's not how I remember it, and it causes a lot of friction in families,
It
even
does.
after the person has gone on to glory.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I just know that even as we're speaking about grace,
Yeah.
even as we're talking about steps and stages, I know that healing has to allow opportunities for confrontation, to
Yes.
be able to talk about uncomfortable things. The elephants in the room must be fed. You
Yes.
have to be able to dissect, feed, and then dissect as you would a pig on a grill. You
Yes.
got to dissect the elephant, and
Yeah.
you got to understand what is so glaring that we're not wanting to see.
Right. 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 Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that is just so, inherent to what we're talking about because grace is unmerited.
It is.
So when we're telling our story and there's
Yeah.
another side of the story, we have to be unmerited in our
Yeah.
listening.
Absolutely.
We're not looking
Absolutely.
for right. We're not looking for wrong. We're looking to build a new reality that gives us a new foundation of trust so the trauma can no longer take over the relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Woo!
So well said.
So good. So good. Listen, we got one question for you that we ask each season of
Okay.
that we have a question that we ask our guests. And this particular season, we're coming with this question that is from, I think it's Biko. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. Don DeLillo. And so the quote is that the family is the cradle of the world's misinformation.
Hmm.
Right. And so we have wonderful, brilliant thinkers who come on to
Yes.
say, but the thinking level or the thinking patterns that you have now were not the ones that were instilled.
No.
Right. So there
No.
are several instances that you could probably think of, but Danita, where is a place that your
Hmm.
family was the cradle of you misunderstanding something?
That is rooted in God's love.
Mm-hmm.
God's love, the way that I saw it emulated, was from a root of, you know, you do this, God is not going to like that. You're going to hell.
Yeah.
You don't love this kind of person, they're going to hell. So don't love them because they're going to be going to hell. You're going to be in heaven. Don't get me wrong. My mom and dad were ministers, and if they heard me say it right now, they would be they would be about ready to knock me down. But I just, facetiously said that to say we have been taught a lot of things. And I remember my second book was called Undoing, Living a Lie and Calling It the Truth.
Yeah.
Because I just remember the exercise of being in my room after my father and my mother passed away, trying to recall the scriptures that they used to say to me to comfort me, and nothing worked. And I remember sitting on my hands as I was contemplating suicide. And I remember just saying, okay, God, mom and daddy said you love me. I don't feel your love. I don't feel anything. What am I supposed to do? I remember getting in my car, Christal, and driving all the way to South Carolina as high as a kite and didn't even remember how I got there.
Yeah.
And I just remember that the moment when I had an experience, an encounter with the unconditional love of God. And it was a space in time where everything just melted away. It was as if, it was a candle that I blew out, all of the candle representing the misinformation that I had in this cradle, and it just blew out. And he was just like, I'm going to reform you. I can't necessarily restore you because your parents are never coming back again.
Right.
But I can reform you to a thinking that's going to sustain you in this world. See, right now we're trying to hold on. We have mother wounds and father wounds because we're trying to hold our parents accountable for things that they didn't even know. And we're trying to be angry and upset with them.
Right.
But they did the best that they could. So we now need to put ourselves in a forgiveness pattern for our mom and our dad.
Yes.
And just say, okay, with that, they did the best they could. So the answer to your question is receiving the unconditional love of God.
Yeah.
That says, even if I did drugs, God still loved me. He still loves me. He still has a purpose and a plan for my life. Nothing I can do will ever put me out of his will and his life, his love for me.
Right.
And I can love any and everyone. I can be inclusive of any and everyone, no matter what their orientation may be, because that is the root of God's unconditional love. Yes. It is inclusive. It is diverse. It is God. He is love.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. I love it. I love it. Right.
Absolutely.
Getting into a global mindset from a small town is about having a bigger God.
Absolutely, Christal.
Right? And we got to get past those nuance and those colloquialisms.
Yes.
They just, y'all, we could have a whole nother episode
about
things, phrases people say from the town we're from and what they really. So we're just, but
I will trust in the Lord. Don't get me started.
But it's a mechanism that disguises our true vulnerability, right? Instead of saying to children, we don't know or I don't know, right? We just give them a catchphrase without giving the experience that allows them to understand. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. I want to just tell everyone about the bundle you want to offer tonight, and we'll put the link below the video.
Absolutely. I have a bundle tonight that I wanted to share. I wanted to just say that this whole bundle is 5 books. It's normally $100, but I'm doing it tonight for $75. It's Quarantine Transformation. The book really talks about pornography. If you're having issues with, trying to understand God's love and also experiencing challenges with pornography, it really addresses that. This book is really about, are you who you're supposed to be? It talks about identity, schizophrenia, and things such as that. This, you can't really see it because of the green screen, but it's Overcoming the Orphan Spirit. It talks about everything what we just talked about tonight. Clarity talks about, it's a workbook that talks to you about grief and grieving. And finally, undoing, living a lie, and calling it the truth. So this is also a workbook that talks about identifying those things that we were taught in life that we need to uproot. So,
Beautiful.
Christal, thank you for that.
We're going to drop the link right below this video, y'all. Grab the bundle, educate yourself. And if you don't have your ticket to Vision Camp Virtual, there'll be a link below this video as well. I know you might be waiting for me to come to your town, but I'm coming right to your living room. So no excuses.
Awesome.
Get to work, okay? We'll put the link below the video. It's May 27th, noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Danita, it has been more than a pleasure. We'll do it again. Thank you for your grace, your work, your courage. Y'all, this is Wisdom Wednesdays. We'll see you next week. Keep on taking the next step. Good night.
Love you, Christal.
Love you more.